When I was 23, I married William. He was naturally distant. He only married me because I was obedient enough. I could help him deal with his elders. Everyone knew he already had someone he cared about. Once she came back, I would eventually have to give up my position as Mrs. Ning. Finally, the person he liked did return. I took the hint and brought up divorce. He gave a careless smile. Sure, let's get divorced. After that day, we didn't speak for a long time, until word got around that I was engaged. That night, he called me 13 times. On the first call, he only said 2 words, congratulations. By the 13th call, I couldn't bear it anymore. What on earth do you want to say? He bit down on his cigarette, his voice muffled. Is he richer than me? Does he treat you better? You really want to marry him? Chapter 01. When I saw on WeChat moments that Cressida had gotten divorced, I already knew that William and I were finished. Of course, not just me, everyone thought so. I read all kinds of comments under that post. William's friends, classmates, and business partners left messages like, Cressida, congrats on being single again. When are you coming back? Yeah, there's someone who's been waiting a long time for you. These people were always distant around me. If I went to a gathering with William, they'd politely call me sister-in-law, and right after that, they'd look away, refusing to say another word. But occasionally, when our eyes met, I could see it clearly. Their gazes were full of pity. Yes, it's like when we watch a movie, we want to see a brilliant couple have their happy ending. Regrets and unfulfilled wishes are already too common in real life. William and Cressida were that perfect couple. They grew up together, studied together, and naturally started dating. Everyone around them said that if Cressida hadn't married someone else overseas, they definitely would have tied the knot. I once saw a photo of Cressida and William at Mother Ning's place. Cressida was beautiful, her skin as fair as porcelain, standing playfully next to him, eyes full of delight. Anyone would see them as a perfect match. Mother Ning sighed and said, I don't know what went through Cressida's head. She went abroad and got married over there. Poor William. She didn't finish her thought, but I knew what she meant. Poor William, who lost his true love, then somehow ended up marrying me. She was his past beloved, an old wound that had already scarred over. People wouldn't deliberately bring her up, nor would they show pain, but thinking of her still made them drift off for a moment. They had seen him fight, get jealous, and feel hurt for her, only to end up with nothing. After that, watching me and William could never match up to what they'd witnessed before. Not that William treated me badly. He was always courteous. Wherever we went, he gave me the respect a Mrs. Ning should have. When we visited the old family home for a meal, afterward, he'd hold my hand and stroll with me in the garden. If I twisted my ankle, he'd crouch down and turn his back to me. In the moonlight, he almost seemed tender as he said with a click of his tongue, get on. Late at night, I often stayed up working. He'd be there with a cup of milk, leaning against the wall like he had no bones, tapping lightly on my desk. Hurry up and drink. I still need to wash the cup. He never lost his cool in front of me. He was at ease in everything he did, even in bed. When the corners of his eyes were flushed at our most intimate moment, he would just give a small smile, as if giving in, and call my name with a voice as cold as ever. Fernanda, let's just keep going like this, okay? His first love had already married someone else, and he'd married me, so he told me. Let's just leave it at that. Chapter 02. I read through the comments one by one. Then, I saw someone mention me offhandedly. Wait, isn't William preparing for his 3rd anniversary? Said he was planning a surprise for her. Less than a minute after posting, the person must have realized it was inappropriate and quickly deleted it. Not many people would have seen it. My fingers, resting on my phone screen, froze for a moment. 3 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Was William really planning a surprise for me? Just as the thought crossed my mind, I saw that William had liked that WeChat post. He didn't say anything, and yet, it was precisely because he said nothing that it left room for endless speculation. I opened my own WeChat moments. I had always loved sharing my life, frequently posting about daily moments. I scrolled all the way to the bottom. Not a single trace of William. He had never once liked or commented on any of my posts. He wasn't the type to bother with such things, he never cared about them. I let out a sigh. There was a sense of finality in the air. Love or indifference, it was too obvious. But there was nothing I could do. When we first met through matchmaking, William and I had made an agreement. He would help save my family's failing business. And in return, I would marry him. A mutually beneficial arrangement. Now, Cressida was back. Perhaps it was time to have an honest conversation with him. If divorce was what he wanted, I had no objections, even if I truly loved him. After making this decision, I calmly found William's number and dialed. He picked up almost instantly. Before I could even speak, he chuckled lightly, sounding completely at ease. Fernanda, bye. Are you home? I'm heading back soon. Do you need me to bring anything? He liked calling me by my full name like that. I clenched my fist slightly. Then, in an even tone, I replied, no, I just have something to talk to you about. Maybe it was the seriousness in my voice, but he went silent for a second, the laughter fading from his tone. Is it important? He asked. I said, yes, very important. After I hung up, I sat in the living room, waiting for him. In those brief 10 minutes, countless thoughts ran through my mind. I remembered how, the day after I married William, I received a friend request from Cressida. She told me she was like a younger sister to William, that they had grown up together. She was abroad and couldn't attend our wedding, so she was sending her congratulations this way. She even said she was sorry. At the time, I had no idea she was the first love that William could never forget. So, I politely replied, thank you. When I later found out who she really was, I realized how foolishly oblivious I had been. Yet, for some reason, I never deleted her, nor did I ever mention it to anyone. Maybe it was because, back then, I didn't love William. People are natural spectators. I simply watched, wondering what Cressida would do next. But, to my disappointment, she did nothing at all. Instead, my relationship with William grew closer. Over time, I came to think that maybe William liked my silence and compliance, but nothing more than that. He was no longer a young man, and he would never love me the way he had loved Cressida. That night, I waited, but William never came home, nor did he send a message or call. I tried calling him several times, but there was never an answer. Holding my phone, staring at his number in my contacts, I almost teared up. A sudden premonition crept over me. I wasn't going to get him back. When some people reunite, others must be left behind. That's how life always works. I sat there for a long time before finally sending him a message. If you're busy, don't worry about coming back. I'll go to bed first. At 3 a.m., he finally replied with a single word. Okay. Chapter 03. That night, I woke up multiple times. I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I came down with a fever. I took some medicine and slept for a long time. By the time I woke up, it was already evening. William still hadn't returned, and just like that, 2 more days passed. On the day I recovered, I saw a post from Cressida on WeChat Moments. That was how I found out that William hadn't been in North City these past few days. While I was at home waiting for him, Cressida had been in a car accident overseas. William had taken a flight that very night to be by her side. He had been with her all this time. Naturally, he had no time for me. That night, I stood outside the villa alone. At the end of the road, there was no sign of William. The moon was out, casting a thin veil of mist over my eyes. I sighed. There was no longer a need to ask William about the divorce. He had already given me his answer in another way. I called my mother. She picked up, and after I spoke just 2 sentences, she sighed. You were already marrying above your station when you married into the Ning family. It was never a good match. Leaving is for the best. Then, as if trying to comfort me, she added, that William Ning, he may seem easygoing on the surface, but deep down, he's colder than anyone. Just looking at him, you can tell he doesn't know how to love someone. That wasn't true. When he loved Cressida, he had been willing to give her the entire world. He cherished her, protected her, and couldn't bear to see her suffer even a little. But she was right about one thing: William and I were never a good match. He was raised in wealth and luxury, blessed with success in everything he did, always achieving the best. The only area in his life that didn't go as planned was his marriage. After Cressida got married, William's family had started pressuring him to settle down. The Ning family felt sorry for him and Cressida, but at the same time, they were afraid he would drown in the sorrow of lost love, unable to move on, so they came up with a plan. During that period, countless women were introduced to him: heiresses, socialites, elegant young ladies. The sheer number was overwhelming. And yet, in the end, he chose me. One of his friends, who had been my senior in school, casually mentioned me. "I have a junior, she's really pretty, but her family background isn't great. She's well-mannered, always agreeable. It's just a shame, her family's in trouble right now. They're on the verge of bankruptcy." Then he added, "William, do you remember her? Last spring, she was at my birthday party. I even asked her to bring you a bowl of hangover soup." At the time, William had been quiet. Even when he went out, he always seemed tired, speaking little. No one expected him to react, but against all odds, he did. His voice was deep. "Arrange a meeting." The room fell silent before erupting in shock. "Wait, William, you actually want to meet my junior?" William had only smiled. His interest peaked. Yeah. In the years that followed, people never stopped questioning it. They thought his marriage had been too hasty, that I wasn't good enough for him. They would bring up, in subtle and not so subtle ways, the girl who once stood by his side, the one they had always called his perfect match. If Cressida was the moon in the sky, then I was the dirt on the ground. When William stepped on me, his people couldn't wait to swap out his shoes. Chapter 04. The day William came back, I was packing my luggage. He pushed the door open, carrying the weariness of a long journey. His brows were slightly furrowed, exhaustion evident in his expression. Rubbing his temple, he walked into the living room while speaking. "Sorry, I had some things to deal with these past few days. I didn't have time to." He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes landed on the scene before him. I paused my actions. "I haven't finished packing yet. It's a bit messy right now. Take a seat and wait for a moment, I'll be done soon." He remained where he was, unmoving, for a long while. He simply stared at me, scanning me from head to toe before finally asking, almost blankly, "Are you going on a business trip?" "No, a vacation?" His voice trembled slightly. I sighed, about to answer, but then, as if he had already figured it out, he suddenly let out a cold laugh. His gaze darkened, his tone sharp as he spoke from above. "So, it's not a business trip. It's not a vacation. You made such a big deal out of this. Don't tell me you want a divorce?" Since our wedding, I had never seen William like this. Sharp, aggressive. I met his gaze and nodded. "Yes, let's get divorced." His lips pressed into a thin line. He glanced at the suitcase beside me. "You're not joking?" Before we got married, he had told me that if I ever grew tired of this arrangement, I could end it anytime. I responded with a quiet hum. "I'm not joking." Under the warm glow of the lamp, he fell silent. A long pause stretched between us before he finally spoke. "Give me a reason." I gripped the handle of my suitcase, not knowing where to begin. He sat down, looking patient. "You can't find the words? That's fine. The night is long. Take your time. I have all the time in the world." His expression was calm, but dark circles lingered under his eyes. It was obvious he hadn't had a proper night's sleep in a long time. I took a deep breath, about to speak, but then, a knock sounded at the door. It was the driver I had called. I walked over, opened the door, and told him, "Just a moment." Turning back, I glanced at William. The words I had been about to say, I swallowed them back down. At the end of the day, it had been William who helped me back then. As for what he and Cressida shared, that was never something I could interfere with. Now that I had decided to step aside and let them be, what was the point of saying anything more? "It's simple. It's been 3 years. I'm tired of this." He froze slightly, his brows drawing together as he looked at me. I placed the divorce papers in front of him and walked past him toward the door. Just as I stepped out, I heard his voice behind me. There was a hint of self-mockery in it. Like he didn't care at all. He chuckled lightly. All right. Then, let's get divorced. Chapter 05. William and I had signed a prenuptial agreement. It was something I insisted on, as if I had already known this day would come. We had made it clear, when we separated. I wouldn't take anything from him. But when the time actually came, he was still generous. He had his lawyer draft a new divorce agreement, giving me half of his properties and a significant sum of money. He said, "If you don't want these, then we'll just drag this out." When he said this, we were sitting across from each other. His fingers tapped lightly on the paper, and when he lifted his gaze to look at me, there was something almost confrontational in his eyes. For a brief moment, I thought, maybe he didn't really want a divorce, but the thought vanished as quickly as it came. The next second, his phone rang. I saw the name on the screen, Cressida. His expression shifted, impatience mixed with relief. He quickly got up, walked to the balcony, and answered the call. See? No matter how busy someone is, they always have time to pick up the phone. So why? Why was it that the night I waited and waited, all I got was a single indifferent okay? I watched his back for a few moments before lowering my head and signing my name. When I finished, I didn't wait for him to end his call. I left. The day we finalized our divorce, he sat in the car, staring at me with an unreadable expression. "Fernanda, this is what you wanted? No regrets?" I said, He let out a faint scoff, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. He turned his gaze away. "All right. Then, I'm leaving." I took a step back and nodded. "Goodbye." He didn't look at me. A second later, the car sped past me. Not long after, news of our divorce spread. I heard that on what was supposed to be our 3rd anniversary, his friends had shown up at his place, carrying gifts, expecting to see a carefully planned celebration, but they were greeted with nothing. Only William, standing at the door in his pajamas, face devoid of expression. Someone spoke awkwardly. "William, didn't you tell us before? You were planning a surprise for her." William stared at them for a long time before curling his lips into a smirk. "Oh, I forgot. Go home." "It's not happening," someone instinctively asked. "Huh? Why?" William's hand rested on the doorknob. His eyes darkened slightly as he replied, "What else? We're divorced." With that, the news was everywhere. William and I were truly over. But he didn't say anything else. His friends, unable to get answers from him, turned their questions to me. There was sympathy in their voices, yet still, that ever-present condescension. I didn't reply, pretended not to see, and deleted their contacts, including Cressida's. From then on, whatever happened between them had nothing to do with me. William and I had always been from 2 different worlds. For the first time, I felt relieved. Over the years, apart from the sum of money he gave me when we got married, there had been no entanglements between the Ning and Bai families. At the end of the month, I went on a business trip. At the airport terminal, I saw William. He was there to pick someone up. Through the crowd, through 3 years of time, I finally saw Cressida, standing next to him. They truly looked like the perfect pair. I stood there for a moment, dazed. Then, the airport broadcast called my name. It was time to board. As I turned to leave, I saw William suddenly stop in his tracks. He looked around, searching, for a long while. Then, he looked away. When my plane landed, I turned on my phone and saw a message. It was from William. He asked, "It was you, wasn't it?" Chapter 06. The day I returned to North City, I had barely been home for long when I got another notice. I needed to meet a client. I arrived at the agreed location, and by the time we finalized the details, the sky had already darkened. As I stepped out of the private room, I unexpectedly saw someone familiar. Cressida. She was holding her phone, her face glowing with happiness as she spoke into the receiver. "Yes, I'm back in the country. Don't worry. I won't waste this chance again." Can you believe it? I got divorced first, and then William followed right after. That means he still has feelings for me, right? Standing nearby, I couldn't help but nod slightly to myself. Yes, he did. Feelings from youth weren't so easily discarded. I walked past her, and just as we brushed shoulders, she hung up the call and glanced at me. You look familiar. Have we met before? No. She gave a polite nod and didn't press further. But the next moment, my path was blocked. I looked up and saw the sharp outline of a familiar jawline. William. He was looking down at me, his Adam's apple shifting slightly as if he was suppressing something. After a moment, he spoke casually, as though he didn't care. What are you doing here? The question came out of nowhere, but I understood instantly. He probably thought I had come here because I knew he was here, because I had been looking for him. I was silent for a few seconds before explaining. I had a client meeting here, just discussing business. William's expression stiffened slightly. After a brief pause, he cleared his throat unnaturally. All right. Are you heading back? I'll take you. I turned my head slightly. Cressida was standing a short distance away, watching us intently. I lifted my phone slightly. No need. You have company. I've already called a car. It'll be here soon. With that, I stepped past him and made my way outside. But suddenly, he grabbed my wrist. His lips pressed into a firm line. Wait. I need to ask you something. I looked up. What? His eyes locked onto mine, unwavering, but his grip loosened slightly, as if afraid of hurting me. What you said that day, it wasn't true, was it? I froze for a moment. Then I realized he was talking about when I said, I got tired of this. And if it wasn't? We're already divorced. With that, I pulled my hand free and walked away. It was only later that I found out. That night, they had been hosting a welcome back dinner for Cressida, but after running into me, William suddenly lost interest. He barely sat for a while before making an excuse to leave. Chapter 07. The sun rose and set, day after day. I hadn't expected that. For a long time after, William and I wouldn't see each other again. At the end of the month, I received an opportunity to study abroad. On my second day in a foreign country, while wandering the streets, I lost both my phone and wallet. I got a new phone number, and I registered a new WeChat account. That night, at 5 in the morning, I jolted awake. When I opened my phone, the first thing that appeared on my screen was a photo, a picture of Cressida leaving the Ning Corporation. Netizens had dug into her connection with William. They unearthed videos and images of Cressida winning prestigious dance awards abroad over the years. And just like that, they began romanticizing their broken mirror made whole again love story. In the comments section, someone brought me up. I heard the Ning family's young master was married before. Is that true? A reply came quickly. A friend of mine is in their circle. Yeah, they're divorced. No real feelings between them, ended cleanly. I stared at the screen, fingers pausing slightly. I just suddenly thought, during the 3 years I was with William, no one had ever truly wished us well. No one believed we would last. A few days later, I received a call from a friend. She told me, William has been going crazy looking for you these past 2 days. Says your number isn't working. Did he not know you left? I thought for a moment, then asked, did he say why he was looking for me? She sighed. No, he didn't say. If he really wanted to know my number, it wouldn't have been hard for him to find out. Yet, after that day, I never received a call from him. Only, on the night of the first snowfall that year, as I stood by my window looking down, I thought I saw a familiar figure. But when I looked again, there was nothing. Since coming here, I had kept in touch with only a few people, and whenever we talked, William's name never came up. Occasionally, I wondered, he must be married by now, right? To the person he truly loved. Just like that, 2 years passed. I returned home around the same time my best friend got engaged. She called me, asking me to go with her to try on wedding dresses. I agreed. I just didn't expect to run into William. Across the street, standing by his car, he was looking down at his phone. He didn't notice me. After 2 years, he seemed even more distant. His entire presence had settled into something colder, something that made people hesitate to approach. I withdrew my gaze and followed my friend into the bridal boutique. She tried on several dresses before finally settling on two. Just as we were about to leave, she hesitated. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she insisted I try one on too. When I stepped out, she pulled me in front of the mirror, studying me for a long time before speaking. Fernanda, have you ever thought about getting married again? You're still young, and you're gorgeous. You could have anyone you want. I laughed softly. I haven't thought about it yet. She sighed. How about I introduce you to someone? I have a few friends who might be a good match. You should meet them sometime. I listened patiently, but then, a different voice interrupted. Sister-in-law. I turned around and saw Jordan, William's cousin. He had always treated me with respect. One of the few people who never brought up Cressida in front of me. His eyes lingered on me for a moment before he said, Sorry, force of habit. Fernanda, when did you come back? Are you getting engaged or married? Big news like this, and I haven't heard a word about it. I was just about to explain when a store attendant approached and spoke to Jordan. Sir, Mr. Ning is waiting for you outside. He asked you to hurry up. I looked toward the entrance. Through the glass doors, I saw a familiar figure. His back was turned to us. The sleeves of his shirt were slightly rolled up, and he was absent-mindedly spinning his car keys around his fingers. He and Jordan had always been close. They must have come together, but it seemed like he had no intention of stepping inside. He never even glanced this way. Jordan suddenly looked flustered. Even his gaze toward me turned uneasy. I have to go. We'll talk later. Without waiting for my response, he quickly pulled his date out of the shop. Chapter 08. I hadn't expected to come face to face with William again so soon. I had been invited to a business summit. My seat was toward the back. Halfway through, I noticed someone stand up from the front row and make his way toward the stage. Dressed sharply in a suit, he exuded a quiet authority. His gaze swept the audience briefly, and when he spoke, his tone was steady and unhurried, like nothing in the world could ever disrupt his composure. When he finished, the girl sitting beside me whispered excitedly, He's so handsome. I heard he's still single, hasn't been with any woman at all. I was a little surprised. He was still single? The thought had barely crossed my mind when I looked up and met William's gaze. His expression froze. Gone was the aloof indifference from moments ago. When the event ended, I made my way toward the exit, but standing at the door was William. His eyes locked onto me, unwavering, without any attempt to conceal his focus. There were too many people around. Instinctively, I turned and headed for another exit. Just then, my phone rang. It was my friend. She asked, Are you free tomorrow? Come check out the venue I picked. I smiled. Your engagement venue? Sure, I'm free. After hanging up, I looked up again, not far away. William's expression had darkened. His eyes held a cold, unreadable weight. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, without a word, he turned and left. That night, after I got home and had barely settled down, my phone lit up with a familiar number. For a second, I thought I was imagining things. We hadn't spoken in so long. Today's encounter had been purely accidental. So why was he calling me now? Did he need something? After a moment's hesitation, I answered. The line connected, and almost immediately, his voice came through, low, hoarse, and tinged with drunkenness. Bluntly, he spoke only 2 words, congratulations. I was silent for a moment. So, Jordan must have told him about that day. He thought I was engaged. I gripped my phone, unsure of how to respond. I couldn't be bothered to explain that it was all a misunderstanding. So, I simply hummed in acknowledgement. The moment my voice fell, I heard a chuckle. There was no real emotion in it, just an inexplicable trace of mockery. Then, not long after, he hung up. I lowered my phone and glanced at the screen. Call duration, 54 seconds. 2 sentences. Nothing more. After setting my phone aside, I took a shower. When I stepped out, my phone was ringing nonstop. I walked over, checked my call log. In just the past half hour, William had called 11 times. I suddenly felt like laughing. He had always been so composed, as if nothing in the world could ever stir him. Yet now, He had called me over 10 times in a row. Just as the thought crossed my mind, my phone rang again. I stared at it for a few seconds before answering. If I didn't, I had no doubt he'd show up at my building in the next moment. "What do you want?" I asked. The other end of the line was silent. For a long time, he said nothing. Annoyance bubbled up inside me. "You've called this many times. What exactly do you want?" Finally, he spoke. His voice was devoid of warmth. His words slow and deliberate. "Why didn't you pick up earlier? Were you with someone? With your fiancé?" 3 questions, one after another. I was caught off guard. So, because I hadn't answered earlier, he had assumed I was, what? I pressed my lips together, irritation creeping into my tone. "What does it have to do with you?" Silence. Then, the faint click of a lighter. William let out a soft chuckle, his voice slurred but strangely serious. "Is he richer than me? Does he treat you better than I did? Is that why you want to marry him?" Chapter 09. To be honest, answering his questions wouldn't have been difficult. There were few people in North City wealthier than William, and in the 3 years we were together, I couldn't find a single fault in the way he treated me. He always stood by my side, unwavering in his support. If I mentioned wanting to go somewhere, he would have everything arranged by the next day, never half-hearted, never dismissive. I held my phone, but I didn't speak. William was silent too. After a long pause, he sighed. "You divorced me because of Cressida, didn't you? You never even asked me what really happened. You just handed down your judgment." His voice softened. "Fernanda, that wasn't fair to me." At that moment, I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but his voice sounded hoarse, like he was choking up. The realization startled me, leaving me flustered. On impulse, I hung up. I was almost certain now. William was drunk. On any other day, he would never act like this. After I ended the call, he didn't call again, but because of him, I couldn't sleep either. I understood what he meant. He was lowering his pride, trying to explain, telling me there was more to the story between him and Cressida, that there had never really been anything between them, that the divorce had been my choice alone. But back then, I was young. I never gave myself a way out. I had always been a sensitive person, the second child in the family, caught between an older sister and a younger brother. My parents loved me, but they never invested too much attention in me. They didn't interfere in my life, nor did they pay much mind to the details. I still remembered when I was 12. I broke my father's favorite tea set. He didn't say anything, just turned around and bought a new one. But when my sister made the same mistake days later, he laughed, pinched her nose, and scolded her playfully for being such a troublemaker. So I learned to be careful, to grow quietly, without making waves. Later, when I married William and eventually divorced him, I still carried that same fear. I was afraid of causing him trouble. I never dared to tell him about the whispers I heard, how people said we were never a good match. I never dared to ask about Cressida. And when it came time to leave, I thought I was being considerate. I thought I was making things easier for him, moving aside so he could be with the person he truly wanted, without making a fuss. I thought I had no right to ask for more. Torn between pride and insecurity, I became awkward and unlikable. The next morning, I woke up early. When I stepped outside, I saw a car parked not far from my building. I had never seen that car before, but somehow, I already knew. I walked over, peering through the half-open window, and there he was, William, eyes closed, head tilted back against the seat. His brows were slightly furrowed, his sleep restless. For a moment, he almost looked pathetic. So, he had been here all night. I thought about the 13 missed calls from the night before. Pressing my lips together, I hesitated. In the end, I didn't wake him. Instead, I stepped out of the building complex and found a way to contact Jordan. When he picked up, he immediately greeted me the same way as always. "Sister-in-law." I hesitated before correcting him, but let it go. "How did you know it was me?" He coughed awkwardly. After a moment, he said, "About half a year ago, William used my phone to call you. I saved the number. I hadn't expected that answer. Half a year ago, the memory surfaced. I had been napping when the call came through. I thought it was a delivery I had been expecting, so I answered groggily, said a few casual words, and hung up. The other end had remained quiet, just listening, and then, just before the call ended, I remembered hearing a soft, almost imperceptible Back then, I had thought the voice sounded familiar, but I never dwelled on it. Now I knew. It had been William. Jordan must have sensed my silence, because he added, "You know, he's been staring at your number for 2 years. Even I have it memorized by now." But he never dared to call. Half a year ago, I couldn't stand it anymore. I dialed for him right in front of him, dared not to call. It was hard to imagine that someone like him, always in control, always decisive, would hesitate over something as simple as making a phone call. I sighed. Got it. Then I told him to come pick William up. If he stayed like this much longer, someone was bound to notice and take a picture. And once it hit the internet, there would be no stopping it. Jordan agreed immediately. All right, I'll be there soon. Chapter 10. It was several days before I saw William again. After his initial impulsiveness faded, he calmed down and did some digging. It didn't take him long to figure out that I never had a fiancé. The supposed engagement had been nothing but a misunderstanding. Jordan called me to complain, saying he had caused a disaster this time. William was so furious at him for spreading false rumors that he assigned him several difficult projects. He wouldn't be getting any rest for at least half a year. That night, I found William waiting outside my door. He had shaken off his previous disheveled state, appearing much more composed. Just like before, he called my name carefully. Fernanda. Something in my chest tightened. He stepped forward, lowering his gaze to meet mine. I misunderstood before. I'm sorry. For a moment, I had no words. Finally, I looked up at him, in the dimly lit hallway. His features were still striking, his eyes steady. Then, he took another step closer, as if he had nothing left to lose. Did you know? All these years, I've missed you. I had never heard him say something like this before. A mix of emotions rushed through me, anger, sorrow. If I had heard those words sooner, maybe we wouldn't have ended up like this. Maybe I would have understood that I had never been completely irrelevant to him. Maybe I wouldn't have left so resolutely. Strangely, though, my heart was calm. I even had the time to wonder, what about Cressida? Did the so-called golden couple really end in regret? As if reading my thoughts, William's expression darkened. She's been remarried for a long time. I stayed silent for a long time. Then, I looked up at him and said, none of that matters anymore, even if Cressida had never existed. I wasn't sure William and I would have ever had a good ending. Like others had said, we were never from the same world. I was the one who didn't belong, the lesser choice. From the very beginning, we had been a mistake. After that night, I didn't see William again. A few days later, my department went out together for a gathering. Halfway through dinner, I stepped outside for some air. That's when I unexpectedly heard my name. It's obvious to everyone by now, William has always had Fernanda in his heart. Who would have thought? I always assumed he and Cressida were the real perfect match. Someone sighed regretfully. Exactly. And that Fernanda. She doesn't just have a poor background, she's so cold and distant with us. Can't even blend in. I guess she just happens to be William's type. Inside, their conversation continued. I had heard words like these countless times before, but this time, they didn't affect me at all. Then, suddenly, a pair of hands covered my ears. A moment later, I was pulled behind someone, and then, with a single, forceful kick, the door to the private room was flung open. I stared in stunned silence at the man standing in front of me. He was backlit by the corridor light, his face unreadable. Who the hell are you to decide who's a match for whom? After that, he turned his head slightly. Glancing at me, he gripped my wrist briefly and said, "Wait outside for me." I stood in the hallway for only a few minutes before William walked out. I asked, "Why are you here?" He looked at me, something indecipherable in his eyes. "Just passing by." I let out a quiet "oh" and didn't call him out on the lie, as if it were just that coincidental. He sighed, watching me carefully before suddenly speaking. Those 3 years. Did you suffer a lot? I froze for a moment before shaking my head. Not really. We used to sit together and watch movies when we had free time. We would talk about meaningless things. But all of that felt like a lifetime ago. Right now, if I had to describe us in one word, it would be estranged. Chapter 11. Not long after, I heard that William had completely fallen out with the people in that private room. It caused quite a stir. The whole social circle was talking about how William had finally lost his temper, all for a woman. And that woman was his ex-wife. A couple of days later, I ran into Cressida. This time, she recognized me. She reached out a hand for a handshake. I've seen your wedding photos so many times. I should have recognized you the first time we met. I was slightly surprised. She smiled, though there was a trace of melancholy in it. Honestly, I've always been jealous of you. I didn't understand. She stared at me, dazed for a moment before speaking. Before he got married, everyone believed he liked me, that I was the kind of woman who was supposed to stand beside him. We looked so perfect together. That year, in front of a lot of people, I confessed to him. I said, "Let's try being together." He didn't hesitate much before agreeing, and he was truly good to me. But soon, I realized, no matter how well he treated me, it wasn't love. He never loved me. He never reached for my hand first. He didn't like me getting too close. That was different from everything I had ever heard. Cressida looked directly at me. So, I got mad and broke up with him. I yelled at him, said he was the kind of person who would never know what love was. You know the rest. I married someone else out of spite. Then, after my divorce, I had a car accident. The moment he found out, he flew across the world to see me. I thought it meant he had finally figured things out. But when I came back, I realized it was just guilt. I glanced at the wedding ring on her hand. And now, she lifted her hand, her expression radiant. Don't worry, this time, I didn't marry out of spite. Then she sighed. But I still owe you an apology for adding you on WeChat, sending those messages. It was selfish of me. I listened in silence, not knowing what to say, until she glanced over my shoulder. She asked. I had the courage to start over. What about you? When it comes to William, what do you really want? I turned around, not far away. I saw him, William. He was watching me, his expression tense, as if afraid this conversation would make things even worse between us. Suddenly, I thought back to that snowy night 2 years ago. That familiar silhouette standing outside my building. It was probably him. After all, he walked toward me, speaking immediately, as if afraid I would misunderstand. I was here for a meeting. Then I heard you were nearby, so I came over. I thought about everything between us. I thought about our first meeting, how I had nervously sat across from him, while he smiled, handsome and calm. That night, you accidentally spilled hangover soup all over me. Remember? Hello, Fernanda. We meet again. I thought about that night in the pouring rain, when he said, "Let's just be like this." And the next day, he bought me a massive diamond ring, planning a honeymoon trip to make up for the one we never had. I thought about how, when I asked for a divorce, he sat on the couch and said, "Take your time. I have all the time in the world." Yes, nothing in this world is ever so black and white. Like he once said, I shouldn't have been so quick to decide what our relationship meant. Who cares about matching or not? What do their words mean, anyway? I smiled, my eyes brimming with tears. William, you love me, don't you? Chapter 12. William's Extra. The same moon, different nights. After William and Cressida parted ways, he let out a long breath, one he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Love had always seemed trivial to him. Something insignificant. Something not worth losing sleep over. Much less something to cry or laugh about. But when he actually tried being with Cressida, the only thought that filled his mind was, this doesn't feel right. Later, when he heard she had gotten married, he felt troubled. For Cressida, for himself. He thought she was being ridiculous, but also that he had let a good woman down. Maybe, from the start, they should never have been together. That period of time, To be honest, he was lost. Until he met Fernanda. She wasn't like any of the women he had met before. She was stubborn, so serious about everything she did. After he casually mentioned the shirt that had been ruined by the hangover soup. The next time they met, she brought several similar ones with her. Looking a little embarrassed, I couldn't quite remember what it looked like, so I bought a few. See if any of them are right? In that moment, William smiled. It was strange. Every time he saw her, he wanted to smile. That was when he thought, dating, even marriage, if it were with her, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Everything unfolded just as he had imagined. They had a future ahead of them, until the day he heard about Cressida's car accident. It wasn't even that serious. But because of his lingering guilt, he still went. And in doing so, he forgot. Fernanda was waiting for him. Many years later, that became his biggest regret. But at the time, he didn't think much of it. He came home as usual, expecting to explain, only to see that she no longer wanted to listen. She said she wanted a divorce. She said, "I'm tired of this." He heard her words, felt them tear through him, leaving a pain he couldn't quite name. How could she be tired of this? After she left, he went looking for her, many times. His desk piled up with stacks of plane tickets. He wasn't a fool, but when it came to this, he was as foolish as they came. It wasn't until 2 years later, after Cressida got remarried, that she finally told him the truth. She had once added Fernanda on WeChat. It was only then that William finally understood everything. She hadn't grown tired of him. She had given up on him. Walls have ears. She had heard too much, and it was his fault for never realizing. Countless nights, he had the urge to run to her, to explain everything, but he always lacked the courage. It was ironic. Really, he had always thought himself capable of anything. Yet, in the end, he was just a coward. But luckily, there was still time. Plenty of time. And now, he could take it slow.